Hello guys, welcome to Visordown, welcome to Sicily, and welcome to the Zero DSRX. It's a brand new one from Zero, electric motorcycle, of course, it goes without saying. And we've been riding around Sicily for a good part of the day, both on-road and off-road, to just find out all about the brand new 2023 electric motorcycle, see what's good, see what's bad, and just see how much fun it is on-road and off-road. So the DSRX, it actually began production and sort of development and early stages in 2018, which is around the same sort of time that the SRS, the SRF started to hit the market. So the styling is something that we had a look in the press presentation last night, and one of the things that they're really highlighting is how much time and effort they put into the fairing and just how sleek the bike itself looks. And I have to agree, I think this bike looks stunning in person, on the road, and when it's moving it just has a lot of form and it just looks really elegant and stylish on the road.
Now, the burning question on any electric machine is of course the battery, the range and the motor. The DSRX has a purpose-built new motor, it's called the Z47510X, and it has 225 Newton meters of torque to the rear wheel and a peak power of 100 brake horsepower. The battery itself is a brand new one as well. It's called the Z4 17.3 kilowatt hour lithium power pack, and it has a quoted range of 111 miles combined, 85 miles highway and 180 miles in the city. Now, these are all distinctly electric numbers, including the power. The recharge times, which again is a burning question, are quoted at 2 hours to 95% with a level 2 charge, 10 hours to 95% with a level 1 charge, so when you plug it in at home. And if you go for the optional additional accessory of a fast charger, that will be 1 hour to 95%.
The bike itself is premium, of course, and I believe it's around £24,000 as the starting price. In euros, about £26,000 or thereabout. And for that, you get the full sort of touring and off-road elements of the motorcycle. So the motor behind this is actually fantastic. It's got a lot of brake horsepower, just low down and instant torque available. I believe the brake horsepower figures around 120. Again, we'll chuck that on screen. But in terms of Newton meters, it's just outrageous. The rear wheel has around 225 Newton meters on tap. Now, at the twist of the throttle, of course, because it's electric, there's no working up to that. They have modulated a bit of the sort of initial acceleration, so you still get a real nice smooth acceleration coming through. But when you're cruising at, say, around about 40 miles an hour and you twist the throttle, it's an instant acceleration to effectively the top speed of 120 miles per hour. The bike itself just handles incredibly well at speed. We had loads of flowing, nice scenery to, of course, look at because Mount Etna's right behind us. We went up and down some volcanic trails and it was fantastic. But the bike itself handled so nicely that you could actually admire what you're doing whilst you're riding along. Mid-corner, sometimes it was a little bit touchy, and the brakes, when you really hammered them on, they did get a little bit squirmy, but they were good to control the speed and control how you're progressing along the road. Now, one thing that I did find with the engine braking is that the regenerative braking doesn't actually have much sort of initial pull to pull you back down the speed. So if you're mid-corner and you're looking to cut some of your speed and you roll off the throttle, it starts to cruise a little bit. Some bikes like the Energica Xperia, you roll off the throttle, if of course you've got the engine braking on max, it will really hammer on and you'll start to slow down. But on this one, on the standard, sport and even canyon modes, this is something that you roll off the throttle and it's sort of there, like there's a little regen bar and it's sort of going into the regen mode, but it doesn't hammer on. You come accustomed to how the bike itself handles mid-corner and you just have to just brake earlier and just you get used to it. It's the standard thing when you get on a new bike, you learn the sort of nuances of how to ride the motorcycle. Now, one thing that I haven't really touched on is how we're riding this off-road. Of course, we had a early sort of rise, we were going through some nice town roads, some nice sweeping bends and stuff like that. Then we pulled over to the side, flicked into off-road, the traction control mode, and off-road as this sort of actual standard mode. And we then went off some actual real good trails. It was really bumpy, the suspension was nice and soft and really putting in the work. And we did have road tyres, they have knobbly with the spoked wheels as an option as well. But we were really just sending it along these really sandy, dusty trails. And it was real good fun. So in terms of how this handles off-road, I was really surprised. It is a little bit difficult to maintain when you're really going for the throttle. I did have a few touch and go moments where, you know, I was going around a sort of sweeping left that was really sandy and the front wheel dug in. If there was knobblies, it probably wouldn't have been an issue. Because we were on the road tyres, that may have been a contributing factor. Perhaps I was a contributing factor as well. But the bike itself dug in. I had to dab a foot and power through. The rear wheel was spinning and a bit touch and go, I won't lie. But in all honesty, this did really well off-road. I've ridden the Tenere World Raid, which is the sort of super off-road mode of the Tenere, and the suspension sort of feels similar to that. You could chuck it off some really big dips and go through some really big bumps, and the suspension's nice and soft and it soaks it all up. They're 47mm Showa front and rear. You can adjust the preload and you can adjust the back bits. We didn't have enough time on the bike to start really diving into adjusting the suspension, and there's not electronic suspension, which would be nice, but the price would be bumped up. But in any case, the suspension did fairly well. It did feel quite soft on some road bits where you brake in and you dive in back and forth a little bit, but off-road handled really nicely.
In terms of the modes available, you've got your standard modes, you've got your sport modes, canyon modes, and then eco modes. So they all vary in terms of what they provide. Naturally, power is going to be different on each of those, but also the regenerative braking on offer. I will say that some of the regenerative braking didn't seem to differ too much between specifically standard, sport, and canyon. Canyon is said to provide the most regenerative braking, but I didn't feel like it produced that much at all.
A few other bits that I just need to throw in as well. The bike itself's curb weight is 247 kilograms. Now that is quite heavy. I believe the Xperia that I've ridden and that myself and Toad rode in Wales is around 260 kilograms or thereabouts. This does have a parking mode where you can reverse it. So if you are in a tight spot, you can go up to 5 kilometers per hour backwards, handy. But the bike itself is fairly hefty. On the road, you don't feel that weight at all. It feels super nimble and you can really start chucking this into corners. What I will do though is sort of point at stuff and we can cut into what I'm looking at. And I'm quite impressed with what's on offer here. The screen itself, you've got these adjustable dials that you can roll up and down, both sides. You've got a really grippy control there. That is one sort of sticking point you have with some adventure bikes and tourers, is the screen itself. You need to really sort of dive in and start pulling things, but this you just simply roll back and it's got a really nice grip to it, which is really good. The mode button and the sort of way you navigate the dash itself is a little bit time consuming in a way. If you want to start changing modes, you need to press and hold, you need to press this and start flicking through. You get used to it and it's basically the standard. Every single manufacturer has their way of doing things and you get used to it. But there is that. The cruise control button is over here and you press and hold it and it does it. It's very, very, very simple and rudimentary, but it's always there. So it's nice if you're on a long tour and you're just sitting at a steady speed.
The bike itself will come with a few accessories from launch, and these include the sort of touring and luggage set. You've also got your crash bars, skid plates, saddlebags. There is also spoked wheels and a knobbly tyre option from Pirelli. The bike itself has a 19-inch front wheel and a 17-inch rear. You would potentially expect an adventure bike to go for a 21-inch front wheel, but off-road, the 19-inch did just fine. Now jumping to the comfort of the bike and how it felt to actually ride, you've got an 828mm seat, and the seat itself is quite nicely shaped, so you feel like you're sitting inside the bike. I wouldn't say that the padding was really soft, but in terms of the position you find yourself in, it's very comfortable for myself as a tall rider particularly. Shorter riders on the launch didn't seem to struggle with manoeuvring the bike at low speeds, and despite the 247 kilogram weight, everyone seemed very happy. When you stand up on the pegs, you are in a very comfortable position, leaning forward a bit of course, and you can see everything nicely in terms of the dash, and you can have a nice feel of the bike. Again, jumping off road when you're on the pegs is comfortable, but you have to be very careful with the throttle because spin it too quick and the rear wheel is going to be spinning as well.
There's a 28-litre storage compartment here, and that can be filled with an additional battery or fast charging if you wanted that. And you can lift this and the charging is up front in the centre here, which is quite nice. Sometimes bikes have them on the side or something like that and you need to sort of dive in, but this is just plug in at the top, which is all good. You've got to open the 28-litre storage space, a little key here. It's not a keyless system, and I would like a keyless system so that if you've got your ignition on and you've got it in an off-road mode, you can press a button and open it, but you'd have to take the key out, put the key in, faff around, put stuff in and out, put it back in, and when you switch on, you need to put off-road mode on again. A bit of a faff, but there we go. The screen itself is nice and visible and clear, but then when the sun gets on it, there's a lot of glare, so you have to sort of poke your head around to get a good angle to see what's going on. And I did notice a few times there was like errors coming up and things that were not really sort of cooperating. The stability control went off for some reason and then came back on. I'm not sure what I did, but it was there. And the bike did start overheating. We were riding at around 32 degrees ambient temperature, and the sort of overheating light came on. There was no difference to power, I might add, but it was there. In terms of battery, you can get around about 140 miles, theoretically. We got nowhere near that today. I think we rode about, let me think, I think it was around 70, 80 kilometers. I think 80 kilometers or 81, something like that. So it was a nice leisurely afternoon ride, if you put it that way. I started on 110% because they had the extra battery filling option. They'd pressed it to fill it all the way to the top, and I finished on around 46%. Now I'm quite tall, I'm quite heavy, I'm quite big, and other riders that were on it, they finished at around 50, 60%. And of course, regenerative braking, there's quite a few factors into this. So I finished at 46% remaining after our ride. Other riders may vary.
So jump into dislikes real quick. The brakes themselves and the engine braking did leave a little bit to be desired, but you get used to it and you know how to ride with what you've got on offer on the bike. There is plenty of rider modes and rider mode tweaking potential, but it didn't seem like there was a huge difference between the standard set mode that you get with a bike. And a final dislike, I mean, should modern bikes really require old-fashioned shocks to park up on a hill? The hill hold control was very, very useful, and it only activates for around about 3 minutes before it just turns itself off, so you have to be aware of that. But when you park up the bike, you can't lock the wheels, there's no handbrake, and you can't apply the parking brake for longer than those 3 minutes. So you have to be very mindful of where you're leaving the bike, just in case it rolls away.
So this is the brand new DSRX from Zero. It's a very, very, very capable bike, and the fact you can go off-road on it as well as on-road is exceptional. I really like how the battery works in terms of the 110% additional extra that you can do. You can have your storage space in here, which is very, very, very handy. I had all of my stuff in there today. And you've also got some really nice machine parts on it, and it looks very nice. The build quality is superb, I've got to say. The bike itself, of course, is going to be £24,000, and I believe as you're watching this, you can also go to Visordown to read the full review. I believe that they're going to be in dealerships ready for test rides and ready to speak about it more. So I absolutely recommend getting on one of these just to see how the electric adventure bike world may work. One thing's worth considering is, of course, if you're using this as an adventure bike in the middle of a forest, you might somehow come across some petrol, but battery, probably not. So just consider that if you're looking to get an adventure bike that's going to be off-road focused and using it for that. But that's something you need to worry about yourself. In any case, go to visordown.com for the full written review and you'll see all of the bits from there. I've got to say thank you to Zero for having us over here today. Thank you to Sicily for the fantastic weather and scenery. And of course, thank you to the DSRX for looking after me all day. My name's been Alex. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Like the video, comment, subscribe, do all that good fun stuff if you got this far, and I'll see you later. Ciao.